Hey, Boomer.
You guys are actually working today. I was hoping that you guys were off. It is Columbus Day. And by the way, who the hell's coaching this team? Jermaine Wiggins?
Oh my God!
It looks like it, Boomer. Believe me.
It was. I mean, the coach had a rough one on Friday night. We could talk about that later. But
I got a bunch of young kids, though. It's a difference.
There is a difference. Yeah, and it's I think unfortunately our football team took the day off yesterday. Also,
It looked that way for sure. And you guys are going to have a tough go with it with Coach Belichick, I'm sure, this morning. Hopefully, you guys got your football helmets on. He's not going to be a happy camper, and nor should he be. And I know he said and mumbled yesterday, start over. He's never been here before. You know, that's how great his career is. That's how great his success has been. Tom Brady's not walking through that door. Mac Jones has regressed significantly. He looks very skittish to me. That's a word that was used down here to describe Eli Manning many years ago, and it's kind of stuck with us. And I would say that there's really nowhere else for them to turn. I mean, there isn't. I mean, they have Bailey Zappi, they have him, and they're going to fight through it with him, and it's going to be basically a long slog for the rest of the season now.
I mean, I'm fighting a losing battle on Mac Island. It's like the book Lord of the Flies. I don't know if you remember that. There's one person left standing. And so how much of yesterday is on Mac Jones in your mind?
Well, I mean, I think he threw his sixth pick six, I think. And that pick six really wasn't his fault. He got slammed, but you know, the turnovers are the killers, man. I mean, that's something that Tom Brady was so great at. All the great quarterbacks are so good at limiting those turnovers. Those turnovers are killers, and that's when blowouts happen. I think I told you guys that last week. And whether it be, you know, a fake tush-push fumble or a pick six interception or an overthrown interception or a tip ball interception, it all comes back to the same guy. It all comes back to the quarterback. You know, I was a fan of his too, and I thought last year he got a really raw deal because he didn't have a legitimate offensive coordinator, and this year he does have a legitimate offensive coordinator, and it's gotten worse. Now, I know he doesn't have a lot of support around him. This is not the Miami Dolphins by any stretch of the imagination or what Brock Purdy's dealing with in San Francisco, but still, you just cannot play careless football and turn the football over, and that goes right back to his decision-making, and it goes back to him, you know, either holding on to the ball or not making clean and good decisions and certainly not being accurate with the football.
I hate to ask this question about a grown-ass man playing football, but do you think he's mentally ruined? I mean, is he a mess?
Believe you me, it happens. It happens to all of us. We all go through it at some point in time. Now, he's still very young. He's had some success. I think he was frustrated last year. This year, I mean, a lot of it does fall on him, but it also falls on the people who build the team around him, and that does fall at the feet of Coach Belichick. He's the guy that makes the decisions in that regard as well. I just see a guy that is like a shell of what he was supposed to be. I think he's a shell of who he really is as a player. I think if you put him on a different team, like if you put him with Kyle Shanahan or if you put him with Miami, the results would be completely different because of the players that are around him and because of the offense that those two teams are running. And both of those quarterbacks, by the way, are really flourishing with their coaches. Mac Jones, like I said, to me, looks like he has lost his confidence. Looks like he is shaken up. It looks like he is skittish, like I said. And it's not an easy thing to get yourself out of. I do know that I think Bill Parcells said this when he was coaching the Giants at Bill Belichick, and you can ask Bill Belichick this. When he was an assistant on that team, he talked about quarterback play, and he goes, you know, give me a quarterback who could lose 3 games at home, get booed at home, and somehow figure out a way to win a game in the fourth quarter in game 4 and do it without being flustered by the fans and something along those lines. And I think that's exactly where Mac Jones is right now.
Boomer, when you look at the game that night, I understand what you're saying. We had 4 turnovers ourselves on Friday night. But what is it about Billy O'Brien and the offensive play calling that seems where him and Mac or this offense is, like you said, it's regressed what all our expectations were. This offense should be better under him.
Hey, Jermaine, you and I played offense, and offense is it's rhythm-based. You know, you got to get yourself into a rhythm. You got to be confident about the plays you're calling. You got to call them quickly. You got to get to the line of scrimmage. You got to make all your adjustments, and things have got to go right for you, and you got to get yourself into some sort of rhythm. I always thought of Tom Brady as one of those guys when his rhythm wasn't going or the offense's rhythm wasn't going, he'd have one of those blow-ups on the sideline. You know, he'd slam the tablet down, he'd throw his helmet down, he'd be screaming at Josh McDaniels or somebody like that, and everybody would make a big deal out of it. And I knew exactly what he was doing. What he was doing, he was trying to get his team and himself back into the game. Like, get over the malaise of, maybe 2-3 and outs or something like that. And I don't see that. I don't see that fight for Mac Jones for sure. I know we saw a little bit of that last year, but I think that was more frustration. I'm talking about really having the heartbeat of your team, being the energy of your team. And that's really what the quarterback is supposed to be. He's supposed to be that guy that everybody on the team, offense, defense, special teams, coaches, front office, the secretaries in the building there, all have to look at the quarterback as the unquestioned leader. And they had probably the greatest of all time, if not the best leader of all time, doing that for so many years. And now here comes this kid, and he is getting worse by the day, and his confidence is waning. That's not exactly a good spot to be in if you are the Patriots, even with a team that is devoid of any major talent, especially now with the injuries that are starting to hit.
Boomer, an excuse that we had for the Pats in the first 3 losses were, well, the Eagles are a good team, well, the Dolphins are a good team, well, the Cowboys are a good team. Should we stop that now? Because Cowboys in particular, they looked terrible yesterday. And when you look at who they've beaten, it's been us, the Jets, and the Giants.
Yeah, it's a good point, Courtney. The Saints are a good team. I mean, Derek Carr's best game comes against Bill Belichick. They do have a really good defense, as you saw yesterday. They have run into some pretty good defenses. And you can say whatever you want about the Jets. Their defense is pretty damn good, as Russell Wilson found out yesterday. The thing that concerns me, man, it's the turnovers, of course, but 13 points in 3 games. Not to mention how many points they're giving up. But the points that they're giving up, remember, they're not always on the defense because of the pick sixes and the scoops and scores that are happening to them. So it is like the worst case scenario. You not only have turnovers, but you have touchdowns being scored off of those turnovers without the other team's offense even touching the field. And that's where these blowouts start to happen. That's where people's confidence start to sink. It is a mind game. Bill Belichick, I don't think he's ever been in a situation like this. I know it was bad in Cleveland when he was there for a little while, and I know he was dealing with a meddling owner, and he had a different quarterback situation going on there. He didn't have the stability like he had, when he did get into New England, and he finally plucked Tom Brady off the sideline and put him in there and kept him in there. But this just goes to show you how important that guy behind center really is, guys. And that's why they pay him so much money, to camouflage all the different shortcomings that the roster has. And right now, I would say the Patriots, combined with the injuries that they have sustained, man, are a team that is broken, really broken.
Speaking of meddling owners, how long does Robert Kraft put up with this?
Yeah, I don't know that. You guys would know that better than I would. I mean, you see him, you hear him. I'm sure he and Jonathan are extremely frustrated with all of this. Frustrated is probably a kind way of putting it. I also know that Mr. Kraft is very involved in Israel and everything that's going on there right now. My thoughts and prayers go out to everybody that is dealing with this. And I can't imagine how he can just concentrate on football when all of this is going on. And I'm sure this is like a double-edged sword for him, and I'm sure he's dealing with a lot of strong emotions these days.
And Boomer, for me, it was the following up the worst loss in Belichick's history with the second worst loss in his history as a head coach that sticks with me, that there was no bounce back. Christian Fourier on our midday show said he expected over-the-top emotion, even so much so it would appear fake on Sunday, given the embarrassment they suffered on national TV. And then to not even score a point really shows how far this team has fallen.
You're exactly right. We were talking on the set yesterday, and it's easy for us to talk on the set because that's what we get paid to do, and we have opinions and things of that nature, and that our bosses want those opinions. But off there, we were just talking about certain teams and certain situations that these teams find themselves in. The Giants being one. The Panthers being one, and, of course, the Patriots. So I would probably say the 3 worst teams in the league right now. Maybe Chicago is probably hovering around that. And the coaches and what they have to deal with, and each coach is in a different situation for a different reason. You just wonder if Bill Belichick and his way of coaching is connecting with the players nowadays, or is it completely devoid of players like Willie McGinnis and Teddy Bruschi and Tom Brady and Julian Edelman, guys that got it, guys that understood it, and guys understood how important it was to follow Bill Belichick's coaching and leadership. But right now, I wonder, how many players in that locker room, because this is a natural thing to have happen, have turned it off and are kind of basically making business decisions as the game's wearing on. Not to stick their head in to make tackles, and not to block or make the extra effort to make the play. And I'm sure if you put the tape on, you'd see quite a few of those guys. And that's why I say this is a broken team, and this is a coach that's never found himself in this situation.
Time for the question of the week for Boomer, presented by McFarland Energy, the trusted source in Greater Boston, the North Shore, and all of Cape Cod for home heating oil delivery and HVAC work. And I know it's early, but is it too early to start talking about an undefeated season for the Niners?
17 games, yeah, I would. I mean, look at all the injuries. Look what happened to the Buffalo Bills here the last couple of weeks. Their secondary is decimated. They lost their defensive captain, Matt Milano, over in London. By the way, which was a bunch of crap in terms of them having to plan a short week and go to London and, having the Jaguars being over there for 2 weeks. They said it was an experiment. I would hate that be the team that was being used in that experiment, and it showed itself in the first half. So I don't think the 49ers, I don't think anybody's going to go undefeated. I just think it's too long of a season. And they'll play games at the end of the year, by the way, if they continue this up, that really won't mean anything in terms of seeding. So we got a long way to go, but I don't think that they'll end up undefeated.
Boomer, somebody's going to have to explain this one to me. Bill Belichick's way of coaching, not adjusting to the players. Based on what we know from talking to a lot of players, he's kind of evolved as a coach. So what does that necessarily mean? Is it that when you brought up Willie and guys like that, is it just that nowadays these guys don't want to listen to a coach?
I think it's a different world that we're living in. Social media, family members, everybody's got an opinion. Everybody, affects the players themselves. And I know Bill tries to keep things simple up there. He has a very simple mantra: just do your job, and everything will be fine. Well, nobody's doing their job. I don't necessarily know that there's a player on that team that can pick their head up over these last 3 games. I know they beat the Jets, but especially on offense, they are not doing anything. I mean, they are a colossal disaster right now, and that's that's lack of playmakers for sure. It's not the track team that the Miami Dolphins are. They don't have Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel and George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk for sure. They don't have any of those players. But I mean, to get embarrassed the way that they have the last 2 weeks, and then to have what happened yesterday is just. I mean, you can't put your finger on it. So you got to wonder about whether or not the players are listening to the coach, and whether the coach has to adjust even further his views on coaching and the way he's dealing with today's players.
It is the worst home loss since 1969, which I believe is when you entered the league. Is that correct, Boomer?
Well, no, not quite, but I will say that it's Bill Belichick's worst 2 weeks of coaching, I can tell you that. That's what's the most important thing here. Not when I got into the league, and I've had a few of these games and back-to-back games like this. I know what it's like to be on a bad team. What's amazing to me is that this is the greatest coach that has ever coached in the NFL. I don't care what anybody says. His success speaks for itself. The way that he had managed games for years and years and years and years was ahead of the curve. And he deserves his patience, our patience, I should say. But also the product on the field right now is not worthy of the price that they're charging to come and watch it. I can tell you that.
Boomer, in your opinion, do you see Matt getting the start next week against the Raiders?
Yep, I do. Because what's the alternative, guys? I know you're a Belly Zappy girl. I understand.
Well,
that.
I mean, I'm not gonna go against to his defense after yesterday, but
I mean, the only guy that I think they can get him out of this is Tom Brady, but I think he's too busy trying to figure out how to buy a portion of the Raiders for a discounted price.
All right. Well, we'll let you go. By the way, congratulations on the ratings. I saw they look pretty good down there.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And, maybe next year, this time, you want to take the Monday off after a loss like this. I'd appreciate that.
Yeah. All right, Boomer. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, guys. I'll see you. Good luck.